Good evening. House impeachment managers have now concluded their case for why the former president of the United States must never be allowed to even contemplate another run for that office. Presenting a case that was as much about arguing his guilt before 100 U.S. senators as it was defining his legacy before the American public. Tomorrow, his legal team will have their turn to rebut the House manager's case. However, those arguments to senators appear to have already begun, at least behind closed doors. Hours ago, 3 of the former president's most reliable backers in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, met privately with the former president's attorneys on Capitol Hill. Senator Cruz told CNN this about the private meeting, quote, "We were discussing their strategy for tomorrow and discussing their thoughts on where it should go." Again, these 3 men are jurors in a trial. So ethics aside, it's pretty much an indication that the fix is likely in. And the Democrats seem to know that. Today, they also issued a warning that this could happen again. A warning for the future of this country and a clear message about what will be the legacy of the former president. The editorial page of the conservative Wall Street Journal today picked up on it this evening with a piece titled, "The Trump Impeachment Evidence. He Might Be Acquitted, but He Won't Live Down His Disgraceful Conduct." And this is the final paragraph. It reads, "Now his legacy will be forever stained by this violence and by his betrayal of his supporters and refusing to tell them the truth. Whatever the result of the impeachment trial, Republicans should remember the betrayal if Mr. Trump decides to run again in 2024. Again, the Wall Street Journal says these Republican senators and all others in the party should, quote, remember the betrayal. Time, of course, will tell if they will or if their constituents will force them to. More now in the day from our congressional correspondent, Ryan Nobles.
He attacked the First Amendment. He attacked the Constitution. He betrayed his oath of office. Presidents don't have any right to do that. It's forbidden.
The Democratic House impeachment managers have wrapped their case with hours of time available, hoping a shorter presentation will have a greater impact.
All of my wonderful supporters.
On day 3, they tied Trump to the mob by showing that those who stormed the Capitol did so because they believed the president had sent them there.
You don't have to take my word for it that the insurrectionists acted at Donald Trump's direction. They said so.
We were invited here! We were invited! We were invited here! They swore an oath against you! They're leaving so you can take care. They're leaving so you can do it. We were invited by the President of the United States! Let's call Trump, yes!
The managers showed several examples of rioters shouting Trump's name and proclaiming they were doing his bidding.
Does he not realize President Trump called us to siege the place?
I was following my president. I thought I was following what we were called to do.
We're fighting for Trump.
They then showed how Trump offered his support for the mob and demonstrated no remorse for the role he played in inciting their anger.
My speech and my words and my final paragraph, my final sentence, and everybody to the T thought it was totally appropriate.
We know President Trump didn't make a mistake. Because you see, when you or I make a mistake and something very bad happens, we would show remorse. We would accept responsibility. President Trump didn't do any of that. Why not? Because he intended what happened on January 6th. And how do we know that? He told us.
Trump's legal team will get their opportunity to rebut the Democratic arguments tomorrow, but they attempted to get a head start today. Their lead lawyer, David Schoen, left the chamber while the trial was underway to go on Fox News. He promised their presentation will show no link between Trump and the actions of January 6th.
I think you'll at least be moved by what you see and get a much better picture of exactly what's going on here and the hypocrisy in some of the positions taken by the House managers in this case.
But Democrats believe they've provided overwhelming evidence of Trump's connection to the crime and warn that it was incumbent upon these jurors to hold him accountable because of what might happen in the future.
I'm not afraid of Donald Trump running again in 4 years. I'm afraid he's going to run again and lose, because he can do this again.
And Ryan Nobles joins us now. So there's also new reporting, Ryan, on the timeline of the trial over the next few days. What's it going to look like?
Yeah, Anderson, it looks like this could wrap up much quicker than we earlier anticipated. The Trump legal team saying today that they intend to only use 3 to 4 hours of the 16 hours they have available to them to make their case. That means that theoretically tomorrow they could move quickly to the question and answer period. Now, if everything goes according to plan, that means this could all be wrapped up by Saturday. Now, there are a lot of caveats to that. We still don't know whether or not witnesses are going to be called. We don't know if both sides intend to use the full time allotted to them when it comes to questions and answers. But it seems pretty clear that both Democrats and Republicans are ready to get this trial in the rearview mirror. And Anderson, based on what Republican senators told us today after they left the chamber, it still seems pretty clear that President Trump will be acquitted.
Nobles, appreciate it. Perspective now on what we've seen in this trial and what's to come from one of the jurors. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut joins us now. Senator, I first just wanted to get your reaction to the case that the House managers laid out over the past 2 days.
Well, it's a remarkable case. It's a case that is full of loads of impeachable conduct. I mean, I think you can make the case that even if January 6th had not happened, the president had violated his oath of office repeatedly simply through his attempts to try to bully state officials into overturning the election. And then I think the impeachment managers did a good job of showing how January 6th was entirely a construction of Donald Trump. It wasn't some organic rally that he just showed up to speak at. He, in fact, was the primary organizer of it. And at that rally, he had all sorts of information to know that this was a very dangerous, very violent crowd. And even with that knowledge, he equipped them with the information. He incited them to violence that led, I think, very knowingly, very predictably to the attack that left many, many people dead and injured. I think today, you know, their focus was on making it very clear that the crowd believed they were acting at the direction of President Trump, but then also making it equally clear how dire the harm is to the United States. These right-wing groups claim that they have had boons in recruitment since January 6th. They are still planning more attacks on the United States. And they also showed how our image and reputation abroad has suffered, that America is less secure today because of what happened on the 6th. It's a really compelling case. I hope there are at least a handful of Republicans who are moved by it. We'll see this weekend.
I was struck by a video that you posted on Twitter talking about a conversation you had with a freshman senator after today's proceedings. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you have to, understand that, these are videos that we're watching showing our lives in danger. Right? We watched yesterday, for the first time, security footage of all of us being rushed out of the Senate chamber. We saw for the first time how close we were to rioters who we now know were intent on killing us. Who knows how it would have turned out, but I think we have enough evidence to understand that there were a lot of lives in danger that day. And so for 100 people and hundreds of staff to be reliving that inside the chamber, it's a little different than the standard trial before a jury. It's certainly very different than the Ukraine trial a year ago. And as I walked out with a freshman senator, he was remarking to me, that these are tough things to watch, tough things to process, especially if you just showed up to the Senate about 30 days ago.
It was pointed out today, the president's responses and lack of responses to what happened the day it happened. And one of the videos that he made is, he said, this is what happens when, in his opinion, an election is stolen or people aren't listened to. But that phrase, this is what happens, it is very telling, and it sort of has a double meaning that was pointed out today, which is he knew what would happen if you lie to people and get them riled up, and, you've seen them attack the Michigan State House, and then you get them to come to Washington, and then you tell them to go to Congress itself, and that you're going to march with them and fight like hell. This is what happens, and any reasonable person would know that. And the president was indicating the day of the attack, he knew it, that he knew this is what happens, because this is what happens when you do this.
Well, that tweet that he sends out at 6 o'clock on the day of the insurrection that I think he erased some hours later is essentially an admission of guilt. Because as you point out, he is basically telling everyone in that tweet that he knew that violence was going to occur, that everyone should have known. And then at the back end of that tweet, he is, of course, celebrating the violence, applauding all of the individuals who stormed the Capitol, ending in the deaths of multiple individuals. And so more than probably any other piece of evidence, that tweet gives you a very clear window into the president's frame of mind that day. And the managers also did this, I think, very good job of showing how, over the course of 4 years, Donald Trump applauded violence, rewarded violence over and over again, right? This local official from New Mexico who said the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. Guess what? He gets an invitation to the White House after he sends out that message. All of it was a predicate to January 6th. And of course, he should have known, given his celebration of violence leading up to that day, that that's what was going to happen when he sent the crowd to the Capitol.
I'm just curious. I mean, it seems pretty clear the way most Republican senators are going to vote. Behind the scenes, I mean, I don't know how much collegiality there is anymore these days, but do your Republican colleagues tell you what they really think? Because so much of this, or the things they say publicly, just seem intellectually dishonest.
They had a chance about 3 weeks ago to essentially remove Donald Trump from any leadership position in their party. And they did not. And so today, I think they are faced with the recognition that Donald Trump is going to be the leader of the Republican Party, the face of the Republican Party, the most powerful person in the Republican Party for the next 4 years. And just as they lived in fear of him for the last 4 years, apparently they are now prepared to live in fear of him for the next 4 years. I think that continues to drive much of their behavior. They are going to rationalize it by saying that either this proceeding is unconstitutional or that the president didn't give explicit instructions for violence. But I think when it comes down to it, most of them watch what has happened to Republican congressmen who cross Donald Trump. They get into a bunch of trouble, and many of them just want to try to avoid that. And that's sickening. That is terrible for our republic. That could spell the end of democracy. But I think if you ask me what they're thinking, that's likely what they're thinking.
What do you think of Senators Graham, Cruz, and Lee meeting with the president's defense team late this afternoon? Is that appropriate?
I mean, listen, I think this is not a jury trial. It's not a criminal trial. There are no rules against members of the Senate talking with the lawyers. Frankly, there were, Democratic Senate members who were having conversations on the floor in front of the cameras with Jamie Raskin and others. So I guess, to be honest, Anderson, I'm not terribly worried about that. Frankly, I'm sure Republican senators watched the president's lawyer's presentation the first day of the trial and are panicked that they are going to repeat that very poor, embarrassing performance and are trying to give them a little bit of friendly advice.
Senator Chris Murphy, I appreciate your time.